Welcome back to the Golden Ancient Tales, your home for immersive journeys into forgotten worlds, ancient civilizations, and the mysteries that shaped our human story. Today, we step into the myths of prehistoric Scotland, where legends whisper of fierce and painted people, a people the Romans feared and respected, a people whose origins remain shrouded in secrecy. This is the story of the Picts, the mysterious warriors of the North, a tale of courage, clans, symbols carved in stone, and a culture that stood unbroken against the greatest empire on earth. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your engagement keeps these ancient stories alive. Now let us travel into the fog-covered highlands, where history meets mythology and where the Picts first carved their destiny. The wind swept across the rugged northern highlands, carried with it the scent of pine, damp earth, and something older, something ancient. As dawn broke, pale light spilled across the mountains, revealing rolling hills, stone circles, and forests so thick that even the sun hesitated before breaking through. This was Alba, the land that outsiders feared, but the Picts call home. In the stillness of that early morning, a lone figure stood at the edge of a cliff. She was wrapped in fur, her dark hair braided with feathers and painted beads. Blue patterns spiraled across her skin, marks of ancestry, tribe, and power. Her name was Branna, daughter of the Hawk clan, and though young, the land itself seemed to acknowledge her presence. Below her, the river Duar glimmered like polished steel. Beyond that lay the wide valley of her people, dotted with round houses whose thatched roofs rose like domes from the earth. Smoke curled from fire pits. Dogs barked as hunters saddled their ponies. Children chased one another between heather fields. It was a peaceful morning, but peace was never a guarantee in the land of Picts. Branna closed her eyes. She could feel the ancient stones humming beneath her feet. The Hawk clan believed the stones listened to the world, storing memories of battles fought, blood spilled, and oaths sworn. Today, she came seeking guidance. She placed both hands on the flat surface of the great stone slab, a relic covered in swirling carvings of beasts, spirals, and symbols whose meanings only druids fully understood. "Ancestors," she whispered, her breath misting in the cold air. "A shadow grows in the south. Tell me what comes." The stone was silent, but Branna felt something, an unease, a shift in the earth, like a warning carried through rock and root. Moments later, she heard footsteps behind her. "Your visions worry the clan," said a voice. It was Cathin, her older brother, tall, broad-shouldered, and already a respected warrior at 20 summers. His skin bore the same blue markings, though his spirals represented battles fought and victories won. Branna turned. "I saw smoke last night, not from our hearths, but from war camps." Cathin frowned. "You think the Romans are moving again?" "They always move," she replied. "Their hunger for land never sleeps." Cathin stepped beside her, gazing south where the mountains faded into low hills. "Their empire stretches farther than any people should rule, but they cannot tame Alba. Not the rivers, not the forests, not us." Branna wanted to believe him, but the dreams continued, visions of marching boots, burning villages, and iron helmets glinting like cold stars. Before she could answer, a horn echoed across the valley. Both siblings stiffened. "That's the gathering horn," Cathin said. "The clans are called to council." They rushed back down the rocky path, the earth soft beneath their feet. Chickens scattered as they entered the bustling settlement. Men strapped on leather armor. Women prepared herbs for the seers. The air vibrated with tension. At the center of the village stood the council ring, a circle of ancient standing stones. Already, warriors from neighboring clans, wolf, stag, boar, and serpent, were arriving. At the head of them stood Druin, the high druid, his long white hair draped over a cloak painted with symbols. His staff, carved with spirals of the old ways, struck the ground with authority. "All clans of Alba," Druin called, his voice echoing through the valley. "We meet today because a storm gathers beyond our borders." A murmur swept the crowd. Druin raised his staff. 3 days ago, our scouts saw Roman banners planted near the river Esk. A new fort rises on our land. Cathin swore under his breath. Branna felt the stone's warning settle in her bones. "They come again," Druin continued. with numbers greater than before. They build roads through our forests, walls across our hills, and claim what is not theirs. A warrior from the Boer clan yelled. Then we strike them first. Others shouted in agreement, their voices rising like thunder. But Druin lifted his staff, calming them. This decision is not taken with rage, but with wisdom. The Romans are strong. Their shields form walls. Their spears lock like iron jaws. We must be cunning as a fox, swift as a hawk, and rooted as the oak. He turned to the assembled clan leaders. And we must unite. That single word carried weight. The Pictish clans often fought one another as fiercely as they fought outsiders. Unity required sacrifice, trust, and the settling of old grudges. Cathan stepped forward. If we do not stand together, the Romans will tear us apart. Druin nodded, which is why we propose a leader, a single war chief to guide us. Whispers swept the council. A war chief was rare, chosen only in times of great danger. Druin raised his hand toward the crowd. The clans have chosen Cathan of the Hawk clan. Branna gasped. The crowd erupted, some in agreement, some in protest. Cathan's eyes widened in shock. Me? I am not worthy of... You earned the clan's trust, Druin interrupted. Your victories, your honor, and your respect for the old ways make you the one we need. Branna felt pride swell in her chest, but beneath it lay fear. If Cathan became war chief, he would lead the first strike. He would face the Roman iron head-on. The gathering ended with ceremony. Warriors painted their faces. Druids chanted to the spirits. And as the sun dipped behind the hills, torches flickered like stars fallen to earth. Branna approached her brother. Your path just changed. So did yours, he replied softly. For I will need you beside me. The spirits speak to you. Your visions may guide us through the darkness ahead. Branna hesitated, staring at the swirling patterns on her skin. The mist around them thickened, wrapping the valley in a pale, ghostly veil. Then let the Romans come, she whispered. We will meet them in the shadows. The first steps of war had begun. The mist clung to the valley long after sunrise, muffling sound and softening the sharp edges of the land. As Branna walked among the roundhouses, she could feel the heavy silence that had settled over the Hawk clan. Even the children played quietly, sensing the shift in the air. War had not yet arrived, but its ghost moved among them. Cathan stood with the clan elders near the training grounds, already issuing orders with the steady confidence of a war chief. Young warriors lined up before him, each carrying spears tipped with polished stone or hammered iron. Their shields, round and painted with swirling symbols, leaned against their knees. The scent of pine resin and leather filled the air. We fight with the land, Cathan told them, not against it. The Romans bring roads, walls, and machines. But we have forests they cannot tame, bogs that swallow their horses, cliffs that block their advance. Remember, Alba fights with us. The warriors nodded solemnly. Branna watched from a distance. Her brother was stepping into his role, with a presence she had never fully seen before. He stood tall, his blue-painted spirals glowing like coiled lightning across his skin. Yet she also saw the weight in his eyes, the pressure of uniting clans notorious for their rivalries. But uniting them was only the beginning. After the morning drills, Cathan motioned for Branna to follow him. Together they walked toward the eastern ridge where pine trees grew thick and tall. A narrow path cut through the undergrowth, barely visible between ferns and moss-covered stones. We must see the fort for ourselves, Cathan said. Branna stopped. You mean the Roman fort? That's a day's travel. I know. He stopped to face her. But I cannot lead our people blindly. I need to know their numbers, their defenses, their intention. Romans have only one intention, Branna said bitterly. To conquer, to take, to build their empire on lands not theirs. Cathan gave a grim smile. I want to see how far into our land they have stepped. They set off immediately with a small group, 6 warriors from various allied clans. Among them was Fire of the Wolf clan, a fierce woman with braided red hair and scars across both arms, or the Boer clan, broad as an ox and twice as stubborn, and Krell, a quiet hunter from the Stag clan whose talent with a bow was unmatched. As they moved through the forest, Branna felt a sense of unease growing. The birds were unusually silent. Even the wind seemed to move cautiously, whispering to the pines as though it feared waking something. By midday, they reached a ridge overlooking the south. Branna pushed aside a cluster of ferns, and her breath caught. Below them stretched a Roman construction site, larger than she expected. Wooden palisades formed a square, guarded at each corner by watchtowers. Rows of tents stretched behind the fort, their white canvas stark against the green landscape. Legionaries in metal armor moved in precise formations, their red crests flashing like streaks of blood from a distance. A massive banner fluttered above the main gate, the golden eagle glinting in the pale sun. The Romans were not merely camping. They were establishing a foothold. Cathan's jaw tightened. They build faster than we thought. Branna crouched beside him, squinting at the layout. Look there. A column of legionaries marched toward the river, accompanied by engineers carrying axes and surveying tools. They're mapping the land, she whispered, preparing for roads. And there, Phyra added sharply, pointing to the far side of the fort. Smoke rose from a cluster of tents. The sound of hammers echoed faintly. They're forging weapons. Orin grunted. Tools, weapons, shields, they work like ants. Dangerous ants, Krell muttered. Ones that bite. Cathan studied the scene for several minutes before speaking. We must return and warn the clans. This is more than a simple outpost. They intend to stay. Branna nodded, but something else caught her eye. Near the fort's entrance, a group of prisoners were tied to wooden posts. Their bodies were bruised, their clothes torn. Even from this distance, Branna recognized the patterns painted on their skin. Picts, she breathed. They've captured our people. Phyra snarled. Then we free them. Not now, Cathan said firmly. A rescue mission without a plan will cost more lives. Branna knew he was right, but the sight of the prisoners burned into her soul. The Romans were not simply claiming land. They were breaking spirits. They withdrew from a ridge and returned into the shadow of the forest. The journey back was tense, each warrior deep in their own thoughts. Even the forest felt unsettled, as though the land itself recoiled from the Roman intrusion. As dusk fell, they reached the stone circle near the Hawk Clan lands, a sacred place used for prayer and prophecy. The druid stood waiting, torches in hand. Druin approached them. I felt the disturbance in the winds. You have seen something. Cathan told him everything. The fort, the army, the prisoners, the roads being measured. The high druid listened, eyes narrowed. We must prepare, Druin said. The clans will gather at first light. This land has weathered storms before, but this one, his voice trailed off, carried away on the night air. This one seeks to uproot us. Branna stepped forward. What do the spirits say? Druin turned to her. They speak of fire and iron, of battles in the forest and wolves in the night, of a great beast that enters our land but underestimates the teeth of the wild. Branna swallowed. A prophecy? A warning, Druin said, but also a promise. Cathan looked at his sister. Then tomorrow we begin uniting the clans in full force. We must, Druin agreed, because the Romans move like a dark tide, and only together can we stand against it. As night settled over Alba, Branna gazed toward the south, where unseen fires of the Roman camp glowed faintly beyond the hills. She felt fear, but also determination. The Picts had always been the children of the mist, shadows that moved through the forest, guardians of ancient secrets. The Romans were stepping into a land they did not understand, and they would learn why no empire had ever conquered the north. The dawn broke with muted glow, filtered through thick fog that rolled down the hills like drifting ghosts. The land of Alba often woke this way, wrapped in mist, quiet and watchful. Today, however, the air pulsed with tension. Word of the Roman foothold had reached the clans overnight, and as the sun struggled to rise, warriors from every corner of the highlands began making their way toward the Hawk Clan Valley. Branna stood at the edge of the council ring, watching them approach. From the west came the Wolf Clan, fierce and proud. They marched in silent formation, their cloaks trimmed with gray fur, their faces streaked with sharp, angular patterns that mirrored the shape of wolf fangs. Their leader, Fyra, walked at the front, her red braids swinging like banners behind her. From the northern coast, the Seal clan arrived, their warriors taller and broader than most. Salt water had hardened their skin and spirits. Even their hair carried the scent of the sea. Their chieftain, Malkin, carried a long harpoon as tall as a man, its tip carved from the bone of a great sea beast. From the deep forest came the Stag clan, led by Krell's father, Eldris. They moved with the silent grace of hunters, their cloaks made of leaves, bark, and deer hide. Their symbols were spirals shaped like antlers, elegant but deadly. The Boar clan followed, each warrior stocky and unyielding. Their shields were the largest of all the clans, made to withstand heavy blows. Their chieftain, Rogan, bore a scar that ran across his entire face, earned from the tusk of a wild boar he had killed at 14. And finally, from the shadowed mountains came the Serpent clan, mysterious and feared. They painted swirling lines across their bodies, patterns that resembled snakes coiling around stone. Some said they could blend into the forest like ghosts. Their leader, Siora, wore a cloak of dark feathers that rustled like whispers in the wind. 5 clans, 5 histories, 5 sets of rivalries. Yet today, they stood together. Branna felt a shiver, not of cold, but of awe. Cathan stepped into the center of the council ring. His presence drew every gaze. Druin stood behind him, staff planted firmly into the earth. The Romans build on our land, Cathan began, his voice steady but loud enough to carry through the valley. They take our freedom, our home, and our people. We have tried to resist separately, and we have held them back for generations. But now they come in greater numbers, with greater strength. He paused, allowing the truth to settle. If we do not unite, we will fall. Rogan of the Boar clan grunted. Fine words. But clans have tried to unite before and failed. Why should this time be different? Because the land demands it, Druin said, stepping forward. The spirits whisper of a great darkness, a storm that cannot be weathered alone. Fire across her arms. Unity means trust, and trust is earned, not declared. Cathan nodded. Then let us earn it together. Not by oath alone, he lifted his spear, but by action. Murmurs rippled through the gathered warriors. Cathan continued. Our first action will be a strike, a united blow to show Rome that Alba is not theirs to claim. What target? Siora asked, her voice quiet but sharp. Their new fort, Cathan replied. We hit them before it is completed. If we weaken their foothold now, we slow their advance, disrupt their plans, and remind them that the North is not conquered. The clans whispered among themselves. Malkin of the Seal clan frowned thoughtfully. A frontal attack would be foolish. Their walls are nearly finished, and their soldiers form ranks tighter than the rocks of our cliffs. We will not attack in the front, Cathan said. We will strike from the shadows. Pick tactics. We use the night, the mist, the forest. We attack in waves, not lines. Krell stepped forward from the Stag clan. My hunters can disable their sentries quietly. They will never see us coming. The Wolf clan will handle the gate, Fyra declared. We move quickly and without fear. Rogan slammed his shield once against the earth. And the Boar clan will break whatever stands in our way. Siora smiled thinly. The Serpent clan will slip inside. Cut bindings. Free prisoners. Whisper chaos into their hearts. Branna exhaled slowly. It was happening. The clans, who had fought one another for land, cattle, pride, and old grudges, were beginning to stand as one. But unity was not merely a strategy. It was something deeper. Druin raised a staff and traced a circle on the ground. Then let the ancient rite be done, to bind your purpose. All the chieftains stepped forward. Cathan gestured for Branna to join him. She hesitated, then obeyed, stepping into the circle. Her visions, her connection to the stones, her instinct. They were part of this war, whether she wished it or not. Druin drew lines across their arms with blue paint mixed from crushed plants and ash. This paint binds clan to clan and warrior to land, Druin chanted. Once worn, it declares that none stand alone. When one falls, all feel the wound. When one rises, all rise together. A chill passed through Branna as the cold paint touched her skin. The chieftains bowed their heads, and in a single motion, each warrior extended an arm, pressing forearm to forearm, mixing their painted marks. The blue spirals blended. The clans were bound. A cheer rose from every warrior, echoing across the valley. The sound was raw and powerful, like thunder rolling through mountains. As preparations began, Branna wandered to the edge of the gathering. She watched the clans interact, boar warriors laughing with stag hunters, wolf warriors sharing blades with serpent scouts. The barriers had begun to break. Cathin approached her. "Are you ready?" "I don't know if anyone is truly ready for war," she replied, "but I will walk where the path leads." Cathin placed a hand on her shoulder. "Your visions, they may be the difference between victory and death." Branna looked toward the south. The Roman shadow loomed there. In her mind, she saw flashes. Iron fire, broken stone, a howl carried through smoke. But she also saw spirals glowing in the mist, symbols of power older than empires. "I will guide you as best I can," she whispered. Together, they returned to the center of the valley where the united clans sharpened blades, painted bodies, and prepared for the night to come. For the Romans had stepped boldly into Alba. But now Alba would answer. Nightfall came swiftly upon the highlands, as though the sun itself retreated in anticipation of the storm that was about to break. The mist thickened, wrapping the land in its ghostly embrace. Owls called from the treetops. The moon, a pale crescent, barely pierced the rolling fog. It was the perfect veil, the perfect night for Pictish warfare. Branna stood near the treeline with the others, the cold air brushing her painted skin. Her spirals glowed faintly in the torchlight before the flames were extinguished one by one. No light must betray them. No sound must announce them. Druid moved among the warriors, murmuring blessings, his staff glowing with embedded stones. "Walk with the land," he whispered. "Let your steps be its steps. Let your shadows be its shadows." Hundreds of warriors from 5 clans knelt in silence, their bodies painted in swirling blue patterns that made them look like spirits rather than flesh. Spears were wrapped in leather to muffle their sound, arrows dipped in blackened resin, daggers secured for quick strikes. Cathin stepped to the front. His voice was low, but every warrior heard him. "Tonight we remind the Romans that this land cannot be claimed. We do not meet them in lines or fields. We strike as the wind strikes. Fast, silent, unseen." He lifted his spear. "For Alba! For Alba!" The warriors echoed, a whisper that rolled through the forest like a breath. Branna felt her heart pound. She had never been on such a large war mission before. She had hunted, scouted, and trained since childhood. But this was different. This was the first unified strike of all Pictish clans in a generation. Cathin signaled to move. The warriors melted into the trees. Phyra and the Wolf clan led the advance, moving through the forest with lethal grace. They blended with the shadows, their feet soundless on the moss. Behind them came the Stag clan hunters, bows ready, eyes sharp for sentries. Branna moved with Cathin, Krell, and a small group tasked with guiding the central forces. Though she felt fear, she also felt a deeper force, a pull, a sense of being part of something ancient, something that had existed long before Rome. As they approached the Roman fort, the forest thinned. Branna signaled for a stop. Through the veil of mist, dim campfires flickered, casting orange halos into the fog. She crept forward, crouching behind a bush. Krell joined her, peering through the shadows. Roman sentries walked the perimeter of the fort's half-built palisade. Their helmets glinted faintly, their armor rigid. They were disciplined, always alert. But they had 2 weaknesses. They depended on sight, and the mist belonged to the Picts. Krell tapped his fingers twice against the earth. A signal. From somewhere in the darkness, a soft THFFFD cut the air. A Roman collapsed silently, an arrow buried in his throat. Another THFFFD, another soldier down. The sentries did not cry out. They had no time. Branna watched with cold awe as the Stag clan eliminated the exposed guards. Within minutes, the outer perimeter was breached. Phyra appeared beside them like a ghost. "The gate is lightly guarded," she whispered. 2 soldiers. Orin from the Boar clan cracked his knuckles. 2 is too many, he growled. Not if they fall quietly, Branna said. They moved. Cathan motioned for 2 stag hunters to flank the gate from the trees. In perfect unison, the hunters loosed their arrows. The guards crumpled silently. The wolf clan surged forward, seizing the gate, opening just enough space for allies to slip inside. Branna entered the Roman camp and felt her breath hitch. It was enormous. Rows of tents stood like pale ghosts. Weapons piled on racks gleamed under the faint moonlight. Half-built walls rose around them, casting long, jagged shadows. Legionaries slept inside their tents, some lightly armored, some resting heavily after days of construction. But their rest was a weakness the Picts needed. Cathan signaled again. The strike began. Phyra and the wolf clan swept toward the forge tents, cutting down the blacksmiths before they could shout. Krell and his hunters targeted the weapons racks, setting them aflame with oil-soaked cloths. Rogan led the Boar clan toward the storage tents, smashing support beams and setting the structures ablaze. The camp erupted into chaos. Legionaries stumbled from their tents, confused and weaponless. Flames ate through canvas. Smoke curled into the night air. Branna moved with a group of Serpent clan scouts toward the prisoner posts. The prisoners, Pict warriors captured days before, hung limply, bruised and battered. "We're here," she whispered. Their eyes widened with disbelief as Branna and the Serpent scouts cut the ropes. "You're free," she said softly. One of the prisoners, a young man barely older than herself, whispered hoarsely, "Are we dreaming?" "No," Branna replied. The clans stand together. Behind them, a Roman horn blasted through the camp. The legionaries had organized. Shields slammed into formation. Swords flashed in the firelight. An officer shouted commands in Latin. A wall of metal began marching toward the Picts. Cathan stepped into their path. Spear raised. Boar clan, hold the line. Rogan roared and surged forward with his warriors. Their large shields met the Roman shields with a thunderous clang. Sparks flew. Swords clattered. The two forces collided like storms. Branna watched in dread and pride. The Boar clan held fast, pushing back with raw strength. But the Romans were disciplined. They shifted formation, driving forward with precision. Cathan saw it too. Wolf clan flanked them. Phyra and her warriors darted around the Roman line like shadows, slashing from the sides, disrupting the tight formation. Romans faltered. Gaps opened. Stag clan. Cathan shouted. Rain the night upon them. Arrows flew. Dozens. Then dozens more. Roman helmets clattered to the dirt. The tide began to turn. But Branna felt it before she saw it. A tremor in the earth, a whisper in stones. She turned toward the woods. "Cathan!" she cried. "Reinforcements!" A fresh Roman detachment erupted from the forest road. Over 100 soldiers marching in tight formation. Cathan's face hardened. The Picts were prepared, but they were outnumbered. "Fall back," he ordered. "Into the mist." The clans disengaged swiftly, dragging freed prisoners with them. The fog swallowed them as they retreated into the forest. Arrows whistled past them. Torches flared behind them. But the Picts were too swift, too fluid, too familiar with the land. By the time the Roman reinforcements reached the burning camp, the clans had vanished into the mist. Branna stopped beside a tree, panting. Flames licked the sky behind them. The smell of smoke and blood filled the forest. Cathan approached her, chest heaving. "You warned us in time," he said. "But the battle is not over," Branna whispered. Cathan looked back at the burning fort. "No," he said. "It has only just begun." The flames of the Roman fort burned through the night, painting the sky with streaks of red that could be seen for miles across the highlands. Even after clans had retreated deep into the forest, even after the sounds of battle faded into silence, the glow remained, a furious beacon announcing that Alba had struck. But Alba also trembled. Branna sat beneath a massive pine, her breath slow and controlled, though her heart still thudded with the rhythm of the fight. Around her, freed prisoners lay recovering, wrapped in furs. Serpent clan healers tended their wounds with poultices made from moss and crushed herbs. One of the prisoners, the young man from earlier, approached her shakily. "You risked your life for us," he murmured. We thought we were forgotten. Branna shook her head gently. No Pict is ever forgotten. We are threads of the same cloth. He bowed his head slightly, as if committing her words to memory. Nearby, Catherine spoke with the chieftains beneath the shadow of an ancient oak. Their voices were low but intense. Branna could not hear their words, but she could feel the tension radiating from them. Fire emerged from the group first, her expression sharp with frustration. She stabbed her dagger into the earth as she sat beside Branna. Rogan wants to press another attack, she muttered. Tonight, while the smoke still blinded them. Branna raised a brow. And you disagree? I disagree with acting like headless chickens. Fire across her arms. The Romans fight with order, strength, discipline. We need strategy, not brute force. Branna nodded. Catherine thinks the same. Of course he does, Fire replied with a small smirk. He has a brain. Rogan has muscles. A loud snort nearby signaled that Rogan had, indeed, heard her. He stomped past him with a glare, but said nothing. Even he understood now was not the moment to quarrel. Krell approached, tossing a pine cone at Fire, who caught it effortlessly. The Boar clan wants blood, Krell said, but the Stag clan thinks we should move north and vanish into the hills. And your opinion? Branna asked. Krell crouched beside her. I think Rome will bring fury when the sun rises. And fury moves faster than reason. Branna's stomach tightened. She'd sensed it since the moment they escaped, an omen lingering at the edge of her awareness. Before she could speak, Druin stepped into the clearing, raising his staff for silence. The murmurs died instantly. Warriors of the clans, he began. Tonight we struck Rome with fire, and though our strike was fierce, it was not final. Branna's chest tightened. Our scouts have returned. The Romans, Druin paused, choosing his words carefully, are marching. A ripple of unease swept through the clearing. How many? Maelkin of the Seal clan demanded. Hundreds, Druin answered. Perhaps more. 3 legions worth of soldiers move from the south. They carry siege weapons, carts of iron, and towers for crossing rough terrain. Fire swore under her breath. Rogan slammed a fist against a tree, shaking pine needles loose. Let them come. We will break them in the valleys. Elders of the Stag clan frowned deeply. 3 legions could flatten a forest. Catherine stepped forward. His voice remained steady, though his eyes were shadowed. We forced Rome to take us seriously. But that means they now move with purpose. Their retaliation will be swift. Branna watched him, wondering how he managed such calm when the world seemed ready to split. We must not be foolish, Catherine continued. Our clans are united now, but unity without cunning is useless. We need a plan or we will be hunted like deer. Seora of the Serpent clan stepped into the ring of firelight. Then let us fade, she suggested. Let us disappear into the hills and forests, strike from shadows, bleed them slowly. Rogan rolled his eyes. Cowards' tactics. Seora's eyes narrowed. Survival is not cowardice. It is wisdom. Enough, Druin commanded, his staff striking the earth with authority. This is not the time for arguments. The land whispers of danger, yes, but also of opportunity. Branna felt the words like a pulse beneath her skin. Opportunity? She asked softly. Druin turned to her. Yes, child of the Hawk clan. You have seen the stone's warnings. But what do you see now? Branna closed her eyes. The forest faded. The murmurs of the clans drifted away. She felt the earth beneath her, the cool breath of the night, the ancient pulse of the hills. And then, a vision, not of fire, not of death, but of movement, patterns, paths weaving like threads across Alba, battlefields shifted by terrain, rivers forming barriers, cliffs offering ambush points, and something else, a symbol carved in ancient stone, a spiral beast, coiled power, ancient unity. Branna's eyes snapped open. We cannot flee blindly, she said, and we cannot strike blindly. Alba itself must be our ally. Catherine stepped closer. Explain. Branna took a breath. We must use the land as a weapon. Lure them into marshes that swallow their heavy armor. Lead them through forests where their tight formations break. Ambush them in mountain passes where their numbers don't matter. Fyra nodded slowly. Draw them deep into land they do not understand. Rogan grunted. And strike only when conditions favor us. Krell smiled faintly. That's actually smart. We should do that. Druin lifted his staff once more. Then it is decided. We will not fight as they expect. The Romans will learn that the land they seek to conquer has teeth. As plans began forming, Branna stepped away for a moment, needing air. The forest was quiet now, but not peaceful. It was a stillness before a storm. Catherine approached her. Your vision, is it complete? She hesitated. No, there's more. Something older, something powerful lies in this land. I feel it waking. Catherine frowned. A danger or a weapon? Branna whispered. And will it help us? She met his gaze. I don't know yet, but she would. The flames of the Roman fort crackled in the distance, dying slowly. A signal, a warning, a challenge. Rome was marching, and Alba prepared to answer. The dawn that followed the fall of Dunvera did not bring peace, only a strange and trembling quiet, like the world itself was holding its breath. The smoke of the previous night's battle drifted low over the land, mixing with the morning mist, turning the moors into a ghostly valley of rising gray. Ravens flocked over the abandoned Roman camp, their cries sharp and unsettling. For the Picts, victory had always been a celebration. Bonfires, drums, and feasts that carried into sunrise. But this time, the air did not hum with triumph. Instead, a heavy uncertainty pressed upon the warriors who gathered in the ruins of the stronghold, awaiting the words of their queen. Iris stood atop a fallen stone pillar, her cloak torn from battle, her arm bound with strips of linen. The first light of morning painted her hair gold and crimson, yet her eyes were shadowed with worry. Around her, warriors, young, old, scarred, fearless, watched in solemn silence. We won the battle, Ira began, her voice ringing across the courtyard. But the war is far from over. A murmur passed through the crowd. They had known this truth in their bones, but hearing it spoken aloud tightened the knot of fear inside them all. Torin, restless and pacing, stepped forward. The Romans will not accept this loss. They will return. And next time, they will come with more than a scouting legion. They will come with wrath, added Brennus, leaning on his spear. He had fought in more battles than most men lived years. And the wrath of Rome is a beast without mercy. Ira nodded. Then we must be ready not only to defend, but to endure. The Picts had always lived fiercely, freely, and without chains, but never before had they faced an enemy like this. Rome didn't fight for land. Rome fought for ownership of people, of identity, of spirit. The thought stung the hearts of the tribes. That afternoon, a council gathered inside the broken fortress hall, where ivy crawled across the stones and shafts of sunlight pierced through the cracked ceiling. The wooden table was scattered with maps drawn in charcoal, Roman armor pieces collected after the battle, and clay tokens carved with tribal symbols. We cannot stay divided, said Torin, pointing to the map. The Romans grow stronger each season. We cannot fight them tribe by tribe. A chieftain from the northern highlands grumbled. We have never united, not in all our histories. And that is why Rome believes it can break us, Iris said sharply. Her gaze swept the hall. The eagle conquers because its enemies stand alone. Silence followed. The Picts valued independence, the uniqueness of each clan, and the ancient traditions that shaped them. Unification was not simply political. It was a collision of identities. But survival has a way of forcing the truth into the open. Torin placed his hand over his chest. If we do not stand together, our children will grow up speaking the tongue of Rome. Our songs will die. Our symbols will fade. Ira leaned forward, and our stories will end. That struck the room harder than any spear. For the Picts, stories were not entertainment. They were memory, spirit, heritage. To lose their stories meant losing everything. Later, Ira climbed a lonely ridge overlooking the moors. She needed space to think, to breathe. The wind was cold and wild, sweeping her hair back as if urging her onward. Torin followed quietly. You speak of unity, he said, but unity is fragile. Fighting together is one thing, living as one is another. I know. She kept her eyes on the horizon. But I also know what happens if we don't try. Torin hesitated. Some chiefs already whisper. They fear you wish to crown yourself queen of all tribes. Ira turned sharply. A queen? That is not what I want. He raised an eyebrow. Then what do you want? Her voice softened. I want freedom. Not for myself, for everyone who carries the mark of these lands. Torin stepped closer, the wind whipping around them. They will follow you if you choose to lead. Ira's jaw clenched. Leadership comes with a cost. And submission comes with a grave, he replied. Choose a lesser fate. Their eyes met, their unspoken bond tightening in the tense silence. As night approached, the fires of the Pictish camp glowed like scattered stars across the moorlands. Songs were quiet, conversations hushed. The warriors sharpened blades, mended broken shields, and tended to the wounded. Children clung to their mothers. Elders whispered prayers to the spirits of earth and sky. Fear had crept into even the bravest hearts. Ira walked among them, offering nods and quiet words, trying to anchor their fading courage. When she reached the far end of the camp, an old woman with painted cheeks and silver braids approached her. It was Cora, the seer of the mountain tribe, one who spoke in riddles and visions. You bear the storm inside you, Cora said, her voice thin yet eerily steady. Ira blinked. What storm? The storm to break the eagle. Cora's eyes gleamed like moonlit water. But storms do not choose where they fall, nor what they destroy. Ira felt chill. Are you warning me? I am preparing you. The old woman touched her arm. The path ahead would demand a sacrifice. What sacrifice? Cora only smiled faintly. All leaders learn the answer in time. Before Ira could press further, Cora melted back into the darkness of the camp. By midnight, the sky was clear and full of stars. Torin joined Ira again, and together they stood atop the fortress ruins, staring south, the direction Rome would come from. They will return soon, Torin said. We must decide. Ira drew a deep breath, her eyes fierce, resolved. Then tomorrow, she declared, we call the tribes, all of them, from the northern peaks to the eastern forests. We create a council of unity. And if they refuse? Torin asked. Then I will remind them, she said, voice steady as steel, that Rome is not coming for a tribe. Rome is coming for a people. Torin nodded. And we will fight as one. The wind howled across the stones like a war horn, an omen of the battles yet to come. Tomorrow, the real war would begin. The sun rose on the moors like a slow-burning flame, spreading its gold across the heather-covered hills, as if the land itself were waking for war. The morning carried a strange stillness, the kind that comes before the world must choose its fate. As the Picts assembled for the great council, even the wind seemed to quiet. Watching, listening, word spread across the highlands and forests like wildfire. Messengers ran through valleys, crossed rivers, and climbed peaks to summon every clan, every tribe, every chieftain willing to fight for freedom. An ancient gathering ground, Stonehaven Circle, was chosen for meeting, a ring of massive stones older than any living memory. No tribe claimed it. No clan ruled it. It belonged to the ancestors. By noon, the circle was alive with movement. Warriors painted in swirling blue patterns stood shoulder to shoulder. Elders wrapped in furs whispered blessings. Hunters and scouts lined the outer ring, guarding the sacred space. Even children watched quietly from behind their mothers' cloaks, sensing the gravity of the moment. Ira stood at the center, her spear planted firmly in the earth. Torin beside her. She wore no crown, no tokens of rank, only the spirals of woad paint that marked her as Pictish, as one of them. When the final chieftains arrived, their cloaks snapping the wind, Ira raised her hand for silence. We gather, she began, her voice firm but clear, not as clans, not as tribes, but as a people. A murmur rippled through the circle. A few frowned. Some crossed their arms. But all listened. The Romans marched north, she continued. Not for land, not for trade. They come for us, for our freedom, our identity, our future. One of the chieftains, a broad-shouldered man with a raven-feathered mantle, stepped forward. Why should we unite under your call, Ira of Dunvera? What makes your voice louder than ours? Ira met his gaze. Nothing makes my voice louder. I do not ask you to follow me. She paused, letting the weight of her next words settle. I ask you to stand with me. Whispers spread across the circle. Some looked surprised, others relieved. Another chieftain, an older woman with eyes like frost, spoke next. Rome is mighty. Their legions are endless. Their machines tear through forests. Their walls swallow the land. What hope do we have? Torin stepped forward. Hope is not given. It is made. But how? Someone shouted from the crowd. Ira lifted her spear. The blue paint on her arm gleamed like cold fire. By becoming one. By fighting not as fragments of a broken land, but as the painted nation, bound by purpose, not blood. The phrase seemed to strike the air with force. The painted nation. The Picts have been called many things. Barbarians, savages, wild tribes, but never a nation. Torin sensed hesitation rippling through the crowd, so he raised his voice. We cannot survive divided, but together? Together we are the storm that Rome cannot tame. Silence fell. The chieftain with the raven mantle stepped forward once more. Slowly, deliberately, he unsheathed his dagger and pressed its blade into the earth. For my clan, he said, I stand with you. A heartbeat passed. Then another chieftain stepped forward. Then another. Soon the ground was dotted with blades, each one a pledge, a promise, a sacrifice of pride. But one, only one, waited, the frost-eyed elder. She studied Ira carefully, her gaze sharp as a hawk. Then she approached. You do not seek to rule, she said softly. You seek to preserve. Ira nodded. For all of us. The elder planted her staff into the ground beside the others. Then let the ancestors witness. My tribe stand with the painted nation. A wave of relief washed through the circle, followed by something stronger. Excitement, determination, unity. Ira stood taller. Torin's chest swelled with pride. It was done. The Picts, for the first time in their long and wild history, were united. Preparations began at once. The circle transformed into a living storm of movement. Plans drawn in the dirt, battle formations debated, scouts dispatched to track the Roman advance. Drummers beat slow, steady rhythms that echoed through the moors, sinking the hearts of warriors from distant clans. Ira oversaw it all, her mind sharp, her spirit aflame. But as night approached, fear crept into her thoughts like a whisper of cold wind. Torin found her standing alone at the edge of the gathering grounds, watching the moon climb over the hills. You carry too much alone, he said softly. I carry exactly what I must, she replied, though her voice trembled. He stepped closer. Ira, you united them. You did what no one in our history has done. And now they expect me to lead them into a war we may not survive. Torin placed a hand on her shoulder. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to move forward despite it. Ira looked at him, her eyes glimmering with unspoken doubts. Do you ever wonder, she whispered, if we are meant to win or simply meant to fight? Torin smiled faintly. It doesn't matter. Rome will know our strength either way. Ira exhaled, her breath fogging in the cold night. Tomorrow, she said, we march to the southern pass. And when Rome arrives, Torin answered, they will face not tribes but a nation. Morning came with steel blue skies and a wind that howled across the hills like the cry of a war god. Thousands of Picts gathered behind Ira, faces painted, weapons raised, hearts pounding. As she lifted her spear, the blue spirals on her skin pulsed in the light. You fight today, she called, her voice carrying across the army. Not for land, but for identity. For your ancestors, the warriors chanted. For your children, she continued. For our future, they roared. Then Ira raised her spear high. For the painted nation. A thunderous cry shook the moors. And with that, the Picts marched, united, fierce, unbroken, toward the horizon where the eagle of Rome approached. The wind carried their battle cry far across the land. A cry that said, we are the Picts, we are the nation, and we will not bow,